A lot of people believe that to achieve success, or even just a bit of peace, you have to do more, produce more, always be available. But maybe the secret lies in doing less, in stepping back and looking at what really matters. Have you noticed that sometimes, the more we try to do, the more tired we feel? It's like the effort is never enough, and we're constantly chasing a rest that never seems to come. What if the real problem isn't what we're doing, but how we're doing it? Maybe the mistake is in how we force ourselves to always be at maximum, with no time to breathe, reflect, or just be. We've been taught that success is synonymous with productivity, but is this mindset actually leading us straight into burnout? Life shouldn't be a never-ending race. We're going to explore together why this constant fatigue is so common these days, and how we can change that. We'll discuss alternatives that can help us live in a lighter way, with less pressure and more balance. After all, no one deserves to live exhausted all the time. Maybe it's time to rethink this idea that doing more is the only way out. Self-improvement is something that, at first glance, seems like the right path, right? After all, who wouldn't want to be a better version of themselves? But as we start to dig deeper, we realize that this pursuit, so heavily promoted by society, can sometimes become a heavy burden. It's like we're always trying to reach something that's just one step ahead, and we never actually get there. For many, this journey towards self-development ends up being more of a source of anxiety than fulfillment. We live in an era where continuous improvement is everywhere, at work, on social media, in relationships. It seems like there's no room to just be good enough. When you look at your phone screen, people seem to have it all figured out. Always one step ahead, happier, more productive, more successful. This creates an invisible pressure. Even though we know those posts are edited and curated, they still mess with our emotions. And then comes that feeling of being left behind. But the problem starts when these expectations become impossible to meet. It's not easy to always be in improvement mode, and over time, this can lead to massive frustration. With every goal we don't hit, we feel even farther from who we want to be, and suddenly, we realize that this pursuit of self-improvement, which was supposed to motivate us, is wearing us out. What should be a personal journey turns into an endless race where we're never good enough. The truth is, this pressure to constantly improve affects us more than we realize. It seeps into our work, our relationships, and even the way we take care of ourselves. And the more we try to keep up with this marathon, the more we realize something's wrong. But there's still a lot to explore about how this constant pursuit messes with our minds and emotions. Let's now understand the psychological effects of this pressure. When someone feels like they're never enough, it weighs on them, and it weighs a lot. It's like carrying a backpack that never gets lighter, even when we think we're almost there. That feeling of always chasing an ideal self ends up undermining our self-esteem, leaving us with the impression that no matter what we do, it's never going to be enough. And that constant internal pressure can really take us down emotionally. Stress and anxiety go hand in hand with this pressure. It's like there's never a break. The mind is always racing, thinking about what needs to be done next. Even after achievements, there's that sense that something's missing. When this happens, the body and mind go into a state of alert, slowly wearing us down. Just stopping to breathe or rest feels like a luxury that we think we can't afford. Perfectionism shows up as one of the villains in this journey. And really, who hasn't caught themselves trying to do everything perfectly? But the problem is, perfectionism leaves no room for error. And error is a natural part of any growth process. We end up being so hard on ourselves that even the smallest slip-up becomes a source of frustration. We start avoiding new attempts, afraid of failing, and this really limits our personal growth. It's not fair to live like this, stuck in a cycle that only brings exhaustion. This constant chase to be better puts us in a race with no finish line. Instead of enjoying the journey, we start seeing every obstacle as a test of our personal worth, and that's a recipe for burnout. Now, we need to talk about the boundary between healthy growth and when it starts to drain us. You know that point where the pursuit of self-improvement stops being positive and starts weighing you down? Yeah, that line is much thinner than we think. Growing, learning, and evolving are fundamental. But when this need becomes an unforgiving demand, we're treading into dangerous territory. Healthy growth respects our limits, allowing us to learn from mistakes and keep moving forward without punishing ourselves for it. But when we cross that line, self-improvement starts to drain us. Constant demands come at a cost. Slowly, what was meant to be motivating starts to drain our mental energy, and we find ourselves drifting away from the things that truly matter. It's like life turns into an endless list of goals and obligations, where there's never time to relax or just enjoy the moment. Happiness, in this mindset, is always tied to the next objective, which prevents us from finding satisfaction in the present. Have you ever felt that way? This imbalance also shows up in personal relationships. Friends and family start noticing that you're always tired, absent, or distracted. Even simple activities like a family dinner or a walk with friends can become a source of stress because the mind never rests. It feels like you're racing against time, but not getting anywhere tangible. And this starts to affect everything around you. That's why it's so important to notice when the pursuit of growth is turning into a burden. We all have our limits, and respecting them isn't a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. In the next point, we'll discuss how to identify the signs that this pursuit is starting to cause mental burnout, because recognizing these signs is the first step to regaining balance. You know when your body and mind start giving little warnings, but you keep ignoring them? Mental burnout rarely shows up all at once. It sneaks in slowly, quietly, until one day you feel completely drained. Simple things like constant tiredness that never goes away, or a lack of motivation to do things that used to excite you, are clear signs. That constant feeling of being down, even after a good night's sleep, might be your body's way of asking for help. Physically, mental burnout also shows up. Headaches that come out of nowhere, fatigue that feels endless, and even irritability over small things are clues that something's off. When fun turns into obligation, and you realize that activities that used to bring you joy now feel like a burden, it's a sign that you're pushing beyond your limits. It's not weakness to acknowledge this. On the contrary, it's wisdom to know when it's time to stop. Doing an honest self-assessment is crucial. Ask yourself, am I really trying to carry more than I can handle? Often, the answer is right there in our daily routine, just waiting to be recognized. If you notice that you're pushing yourself more than what's healthy, that you never feel satisfied with what you do, it's time to step back and assess your mental health. This recognition is the first step toward reclaiming your balance. Now that we know how to spot the signs, the next question is, what do we do about it? In the next point, we'll talk about strategies you can use to deal with burnout and regain balance in your life, without giving up on your goals, but also without sacrificing your mental health. After all, self-development should come with self-care. Accepting that we're not perfect can be freeing. Yes, mistakes will happen, and that's okay. When we stop being so hard on ourselves and start seeing mistakes as a natural part of the journey, life gets a bit lighter, and that helps us evolve in a calmer way, without the constant pressure of always having to get it right. How about, instead of trying to be perfect all the time, you start allowing yourself to just be human? This acceptance is the first step to regaining balance. Self-compassion is another key part of this journey. Treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a close friend can make a huge difference. This can mean simple things, like taking a break when you feel you need it, or even forgiving yourself for not reaching every goal. Maybe it's time to stop for a bit, turn off the notifications, and take care of yourself. After all, no one can keep going on this self-development journey without giving themselves time to breathe. Setting boundaries is also an essential strategy to avoid burnout. It's not always easy to say no, especially when we feel like we have to meet everyone's expectations. But the truth is, by setting clear limits on how far we can go, we're protecting our well-being. Learning to respect your own limits is a sign of strength, not weakness. And saying no when something goes beyond your capacities is an act of self-care. Incorporating small mindfulness practices into your day can be a powerful way to regain balance. Meditation, for example, helps slow down the mind and relieve internal pressure. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. 5 minutes of conscious breathing can already make a big difference. Taking short breaks throughout the day, even if they're quick, helps clear your mind and recharge your energy. This gives you more focus and calm to move forward with more ease. Each of us has our own journey, and it's okay to take one step at a time. The important thing is not to sacrifice your well-being in the process. So, here's an important question. Have you been respecting yourself in this quest to be better, or are you pushing yourself too hard? Now's the time to think about it, and if necessary, adjust your pace to move forward in a lighter and healthier way. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we're always talking about how to grow more consciously, without leaving self-care and balance behind.